Hi, I'm Lucien, the designer for Eden Left Behind, a narrative mech exploration TTRPG. Happy New Year, everyone! After a busy holiday, I'm finally back to posting again. I've been thinking about game worlds recently, how they present themselves, what they focus on, what's left out, how many set characters are given. When world building, where the attention and extra detail is placed can tell the reader a lot about what they should be focused on when playing the game. I frequently see world building focused on the past, long timelines, major events, royal bloodlines. Lots and lots of effort put into what was, rather than what is or what could be. There's this common piece of world building or lore advice, especially in fantasy, where the world needs to be post apocalyptic to work in a game, or rather, there has to be a rich history that would spawn analysis, timeline, and the truth behind videos on YouTube. Lots of tips on making layers of ancient kingdoms or incorporating rust, rot, and mold into your world. While such long histories can be intriguing, the interest is a meta reward. Your character might not be interested in the history of a world. The player might be for sure. But then they aren't embodying a character, they're controlling one, puppeting them through a history class. When history is more interesting than the present, why set the world in the present? Turn back the clock, place the viewer into the actually engaging part of your timeline. Sometimes I'll be watching a movie or playing a game and think, why didn't they set the story during the interesting part? This is true for characters as well. Avoid writing a really cool backstory for your character that would outshine the current story. If you're considering writing a backstory about a prince whose kingdom has collapsed, try setting the story during the collapse of the kingdom instead. That's a whole other topic that I could get into another time though, so back to worlds. When world building a new setting, you don't really need much. There's 3 things that you should include, with extra detail being given only when it matters to the story. 1. The biggest event in memorable history. Something big that shaped the setting and its people. This should be something that great-grandparents experienced at the most. Maybe some long-lived species were around to see it too. This is the collapse of the Republic in Star Wars, the bombs falling in Fallout, or Shadow's backstory in Sonic 3. 2. The event that happened most recently. Something important that can launch the plot or impact the world in a big way. Things like the death of a monarch, the start of a civil war. This is the death of Fallon in Dungeon Meshi, the Mind Flayer invasion in Baldur's Gate 3, or the creation of Indominus Rex in Jurassic World. And 3. What makes this world different? Inventions, status quo, ongoing problems, stuff that is rich with story hooks and details. This is the tension between countries in Spy Family, the mobile suits in Gundam, or the personas in Persona. Keep in mind that these should only be things that actually affect the story and world. If there was a kingdom that collapsed, but people rebuilt and are doing okay now, you can leave that out. Just incorporate the important bits that the story actually interacts with. Frieren shows this concept pretty well, so spoilers for the first few episodes of the show ahead. The biggest event in memorable history would be the death of the Demon King. While not in the memory of everyone, Frieren is our point of view character, so her memory is what matters here. The show starts with the party having returned from killing the Demon King, ending a war that lasted for at least 1,000 years. That's definitely the biggest event in memorable history. The event that happened most recently is the death of the hero. While not really that important to most people in the world, it was a big deal for Frieren, prompting her journey north. So if this were a role-playing game campaign, the death of the hero would be very important for players specifically. And what makes this world different? Frieren is a basic fantasy setting, demons, dragons, wizards, but what makes it different is the magic. The way that people study magic in Frieren is much like how we develop technology in real life. They take an idea, and then they improve it over time until it's 10 times better than what it was before. Now you combine all of these, and you get a really interesting setting. The war is over, the hero is dead, and the magic system develops, showing a passage of time. When put together with the themes that Frieren explores, it all makes for a fantastic story. For a little proof of concept, I'm going to text my friend this method and ask him to come up with something. He's not a writer, he's not a GM, he's a player in my home games and actually one of the playtesters for Eden. Okay, he's responded 10 minutes later with this. The biggest event. Humanity discovers faster than light travel. We spread across the stars, rapidly colonizing the Milky Way. Companies race to gain market share on faster than light technology, realizing how much money they could make. The most recent event. A war between companies breaks out over who controls faster than light technology. One company emerges victorious, now controlling all transportation in the galaxy. And what makes it different? Scientists realize that FTL travel corrupts matter, that then corrupts more matter, creating a chain reaction. The galaxy is slowly becoming corrupted bit by bit with each use of FTL travel. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to come up with an idea of an intricate world with these steps. You don't need to be someone who comes up with worlds often, or even runs games. I'm already wondering what happened to the other companies that didn't win, what people are doing to stop the corruption, and what kinds of suspicious business this big company gets up to. This brings me to my next point. Don't answer everything. In the example my friend just gave me, what the corruption does exactly is not explained. At least, not now. If this was a show, discovering what is going on would be part of the story. If this was a role playing game, the players might try and solve this crisis. They could try to take out the big company, but that would cut off the galaxy from all travel, so they might not. They might just explore the world and need to deal with a galaxy wide monopoly on travel. Each question comes loaded with two more. It's good to leave large amounts of lore and world building as a mystery. Not so much that the viewers are confused constantly and have no idea what's going on, but just enough that it makes everyone invested. Recently, I got a copy of Our Brilliant Ruin, which is this Gilded Age apocalypse horror game. The world is dying from rust and mutative magic, creating vampires, werewolves, and rendering most weaponry useless. The book doesn't actually answer exactly what the ruin is or how it works. It merely says that it's not from this world, and it's messing everything up. Factions have differing ideas as to what the ruin is, but even people within those factions often disagree. For example, one of the families uses the ruin to experiment, sometimes creating monsters, while another is trying to tame it as if it were a part of nature. But neither is necessarily the correct way to interact with the ruin. The exact nature of the apocalypse is left up to each individual table. Nothing is certain, so the answers will fit exactly the type of story you want to tell. Now, this is different from just saying, I don't know, when designing a world. The key is to give hints, clues, possibilities, but not deciding on which are true. Which actually lead to the correct answer is up to the people interacting with the story. For a world building project solely for your own viewing and satisfaction, creating centuries of history can be fun and a really great creative exercise. But for a game, these details don't impact the story happening at the table, so they are pages wasted on something that won't be used. When world building for any kind of story, especially an interactive and collaborative story like a role playing game, placing details into the present is important for gameplay, current conflicts, unanswered questions, possible futures. These elements will spawn narratives that you could never have planned. When writing lore and setting details for Eden, I try to utilize these techniques the best I can. The exposition needed to tell a table what the setting is all about takes maybe 10 minutes for the entire thing, but that's not to say the world is simple at all. In fact, the lack of minute detail is what invites the intricacy. The setting details are not placed in explanations or short stories. They're put into names, flavor text, and a biased narrator. I'll provide some examples. The pilot gear SEI Terms and Conditions reads, a hefty textbook, useful for convincing non-compliant SEI workers and doing things by the book. That's all it says. But with that, you can gather a few things. First, the SEI has a lot of rules. A hefty textbook. This thing weighs a lot, meaning it has lots of pages, lots of text for specific rules in the company. Second, as a pilot, your job may include interacting with and convincing non-compliant employees to rejoin the company. And lastly, doing things by the book implies there is a certain way the SEI wants you to act. And given how rolling works in the game, being player-driven, flexible, giving advantages based on creative use of a scene, having this item means that if the player wants to do something that they believe is by the book and narrates themselves as interacting with the terms and conditions, they'll get a bonus to the roll. The name of mech cores and kaiju classes are another example. Mech cores are all named after gods: Zeus, Ganesh, Ra. Kaiju classifications are named after mythical creatures: dragon, Fenrir, Hydra. There's no explained meaning for why they're named this way, but the thematic consistency creates a vibe at the least, and theories for what it could mean at the most. Enemy descriptions can be ripe with world building and lore. The Leviathan enemy description reads, this monster should not exist. It floats in the vacuum of space, controlling its children with a song of unbelievable beauty. Our brains become addicted to its presence with only minor exposure. Follow code I-27-1. Exterminate all evidence of this monstrosity. This description tells us a couple things. According to the text, whatever this Leviathan is, should not be. It explains that it has children, so probably a lesser enemy is always accompanying it. And we get a taste of what some of those SEI rules are. This description reads more like instructions than anything, which implies a narrator that isn't just there to inform a reader. A biased narrator can purposefully leave out specific details, making readers come to their own conclusions. How would you know what details are being left out, changed, and which are true? Earth, or Eden as it's called now, has been converted into a utopian paradise, overgrown with wildlife and at peace with humanity. So then, Why would you leave? The game is titled Eden Left Behind, after all. Well, the book tells you that Eden has become overpopulated. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. The reasons for many things in the setting are left up to the table, but the game gives little tastes and clues along the way, clues that I won't spoil in a video, of course. And before you go wondering what the canon version of Eden is, there isn't one. Whatever you play is the canon version. The answers are for you and your table to discover, and you won't really need to make it up, at least not from scratch. The clues that I mentioned earlier will guide your table to a unified explanation that might just look different for each group. The way that this all works together creates a world that invites you in and then slowly reveals itself as you play. Back to my method from the beginning. Let's check how Eden uses the 3 parts. The biggest event in memorable history. 300 years ago, the first faster-than-light object ever recorded crashed through the 7th International Space Station. Knowledge of the object causes humanity to advance technology quicker than ever before, leading to the development of clones and terraforming. Earth ends up as a paradise, where all needs are met and humans live at peace with nature. The most recent event. Gen 2 pilots, along with their mechs and sunflower stations, are sent into the uncharted areas of space. Their mission? Terraform and colonize planets, spreading the reach of humanity. This is where the game comes in, players each embodying a Gen 2 pilot. And what makes this world different? The technology in Eden is quite different from most sci-fi and mech settings. Biotech is heavily advanced. Pilots are cloned with solar power and chlorophyll. Mechs can have kaiju parts grafted onto them to create biomechs. But electronics have been set back to something closer to the 90s or early 2000s, with a little sci-fi twist, of course. Physical buttons and wires are used for everything. Computers are thick and clunky. Think Serial Experiments Lane, Evangelion, or even original Star Wars. The internet as a whole doesn't really exist anymore, and artificial intelligence went extinct 3 centuries ago. This 3-point method can be great for creating a world and explaining it to others. It took me no time at all to explain the basics of my setting to you, and it leaves questions without confusion. When world building, it's important to be conscious of what you put the focus of detail into. Placing details into the now will allow for flexible stories with discovery, mystery, and conflict that draws you in. I encourage you to try the 3-point method out yourself. You might be better at world building than you think. This is just my thoughts on world building, however, so I'd love to hear what others have to say. Let me know in the comments. I try to respond to all of them. I post here weekly about storytelling, game designs, and this game, Eden Left Behind, so subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. Thanks for watching.